You've been sober for 18 years, I believe, and it took you 15 years or so just to finally speak out about it. Why?
Honestly, at 15 years, I still felt shame around recovery. I think the idea of being a woman and being sober holds a lot of stigma. And so for a really long time, I just kept quiet. As a Division I collegiate swimmer, I did an Ironman. I lived in an ashram and studied yoga. I was certified in Pilates. So I had all these wellness certifications. So I think people just thought I was healthy. And then in 2022, I think we'll talk about it in a little bit. It was just a really tough year. I'd gone through a lot of life transitions. I got divorced, I moved. And that year, um, it was in a meditation. And I was like, wait a second, why am I still feeling shame after 15 years? It was after COVID. We saw the numbers of women drinking on the rise. Mommy wine culture was this all time high. The number of women with young children at home drinking had increased 300%. I mean, all of these things. And I was like, man, um, what if I can help one woman? And so in meditation, it was literally like, wow, if I share my story and I can help one woman, because I say just, like I was, quote, just a wine drinker. Like I hear your story and it's so sensational, and we have a lot of friends that have these really like, oh my goodness, how are you alive stories? And mine wasn't like that. I was a blackout drinker. But I didn't, I was like, oh, I drink wine, I go to restaurants and I black out and drink at home, but it's not that sensational. And so why does anybody need to hear my story or want to hear my story? Um, and a friend of mine I went to college with and drank with asked me, he's like, hey, would you ever want to share your story? And it was like the right place, the right time. I was like, okay, sure. It was Mental Health Awareness Month. I was like, maybe I could help one person. And I did. And the feedback I got from that podcast and sharing, I heard from people where I had no idea that addiction was so strong in their families, whether it was their mother, their brother, an aunt and uncle, grandparent. Like it touches so many people's lives, and I didn't realize it until I shared it. And that first time I shared it, I was like, wow, I felt purpose. And I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do, is share really openly about my recovery in the hopes that one woman hears something in my story and seeks help for her addiction.
What was so like shameful for you like 15 years in? Like what were you so worried about? Like as far as people's opinions or how you felt about your journey? Like what was so hard about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, as an athlete for so long, I was a straight A student when I was younger. I was always performance meant love and acceptance, right? And so if I shared this openly and there could be 100 people, and I don't know if you can relate, 100 people that say, wow, this is amazing, but that one person that says something negative, I'm like, I'm going to change your mind, right? And so it's this idea of if I'm not perfect, I'm not lovable. And that was a really huge hurdle that I had to get over, is that I'm not for everybody. Um, and there could be people that don't like what I say or don't like my message, and they're not my people. It's truly that one woman. And that was kind of that turning point in, it's not about the masses. It's about um, that small number of people or women or lives that you can impact. Because when one woman gets sober, and same with one man, I mean, the ripple effect into their family and community and job and everything is so powerful. It's just like drinking. When we were drinking, my impact of those around me was really strong. But when one woman gets sober, it's the same thing. The impact and change is so powerful.
You're seeing a big movement now, especially with women and men too. But I know, like you brought up, like the mommy wine culture, and you're talking about women in recovery. So we'll kind of stay here for a minute. But there's a huge movement to be sober curious and just give up drinking, even if you're not an addict, right? Like, why do you think that's become so popular lately?
I think it's acceptable, right? I think more people are talking about it, and the more people that share their stories, the less alone people feel, right? We also saw a study come out recently that women are feeling more lonely than ever. And so I think if we can connect with a group of people, whether it's through being sober or exercise or interest, we feel less alone. And I think that's the most important thing right now, is just feeling connected to another human after the pandemic and with social media, right? We feel so disconnected. Um, but I think it's great. I mean, I think there's this idea which I'd never heard of until, maybe a year or two ago, but there's a spectrum of drinking, right? Like there's like gray area drinking, because I only knew my drinking, which was, I'm going to die. If I continue down this path, I won't be alive for very long, or I'll end up in jail, institution jails or dead. Um, but there's this whole spectrum of the gray area drinking and the sober curious and alcohol free. And I think it's really beautiful to see more people interested in the health side of it. Um, and so I think, yeah, I think the more we can talk about the benefits of not drinking, it's great. Um, but those, those of us that are struggling with addiction, it's not a choice, or it is a choice, but it's a different approach.
Well, I think a lot of it too is people are realizing that they've been using something to self-medicate for so long, right? And to fit in with people that they're not aligned with. I know, you and I have known each other for a while and we have a lot in common. We were born at the same hospital. We both grew up in the same area, which is funny. And the other thing is that like my story with addiction was a lot of it was fueled by being picked on and wanting to fit in with other people. And I know that was the case for you. So walk me through like the arc of like how you grew up and then like what like was the catalyst like for you getting in the party scene.
Yeah, so I'm the oldest, of a younger sister and a younger brother, and I was always this achiever. I was driven by achievement. I wanted to be successful in swimming. I jumped into the pool and I wanted the first place trophy, and my mom's like, "Okay, well then you'd have to go summer swimming." And I was like, "Done, sign me up." Like I was always, let me figure it out and let me just go, higher, faster, stronger. Straight A student, I did really well. And then we moved schools and I remembered these girls. I was eclectic and I didn't really care. And I got made fun of, right? The bullying, the picking. Um, and I was like, oh my gosh. And for the first time in sixth grade, seventh grade, I was like, oh, their voice is more important than mine. And I don't know where that came from. And I wanted to fit in so bad. And I didn't. Like I was awkward. I was studious. I was a little nerdy. I was excitable. I was excited, and I swam, which wasn't a really cool sport. And so these girls were playing lacrosse and soccer. And when I found alcohol, I found marijuana and I found LSD in middle school, and then I found alcohol in high school. It just quieted that care, um, because all I wanted to do was fit in, yeah, and feel connected and liked, right? And that fast forward to the sharing for the first time in 15 years, like that old fear came back again. Like, if I'm not liked for who I am, then am I really likable? Um, yeah. And so I started, drinking, and I didn't really like the taste of it, but I liked what it did. And I remember playing the Hey Mister. I don't know if you guys did this, like, because, outside with my friend who is also in recovery, we'd stand outside and we'd be like, "Hey, Mister, can you buy us some Boone's Farms or Mad Dog 2020?" Because it was quick and it didn't taste terrible, and um, yeah, and that was kind of what we did. And fast forward college, I was still able to drink, and I was a blackout drinker, and show up for practice and break school records and pass. I wasn't doing great, but I felt like if all those external things were okay, then I wasn't really an alcoholic because I hadn't, gotten kicked out of school or gotten in a car accident or gotten arrested or any of those things. And so those external things that we talk about, kept me in check.
We're talking about the external things. Like where was Michael in his success as a swimmer when you were like going through all this? Because I'm curious, like, was there ever a point where you were looking at what he was able to achieve and you felt like less than because you were also like competing in a very similar sport?
No, I was done. I mean, by the time, Michael, when it was in 2003 in Barcelona, I had already graduated from college. I was done swimming. I was finished. I was like, I'm good. And so I was able to just cheer him on and, be proud of his success. It wasn't until many, many, many years later. I mean, probably recently, when I look back, I'm like, man, um, that regret of, well, how good could, my sister was third in the world at 14 and Michael was incredibly successful in the sport. I'm like, man, I wonder if I hadn't drank and given it my all, like what that would have looked like. But for the first time, only recently, it's like everything, every adversity, every good and bad thing in my life has brought me to this point. And this is the first time I can say I'm comfortable in my skin. I'm happy in my life with the challenges, with the good, with everything. Um, but it took a lot of work, But yeah, I did go through a period and I'm like, man, I wonder what if.
So have you recently gotten back into swimming? 'Cause I think I saw that you're helping like Jamie Alexander, who's also coming on the podcast soon, thanks to you. Like I saw you were helping her with something. So have you gotten back into it?
That's a great question, and I love Jamie, and I can't wait for your conversation with her. She's just an epic human. And no, so she started swimming. And she can. I won't take her story. She just started swimming, and she came to visit. She came down for a weekend. She's like, "Hey, can we go swimming?" Like, and I'm like, "I haven't." And at first I was like, I haven't gone swimming. I haven't swam in 15 years since I did an Ironman. I'm like, well, that I swam one time when I was pregnant with Alexander. I'm like, okay, I haven't swam in 8 years. And I'm like, I must really, really love you to get back in the pool because it's not, but after getting in the pool, I was like, this is actually not too bad. And what I realized was my expectation was if I can't swim for 2 hours at a really high level, really fast and be out of breath and in pain, it doesn't count. And she was able to kind of she gave me that permission slip to enjoy it again and just be in the moment, right? Like I swam maybe 800 yards, which as a distance swimmer isn't a lot, but it was okay because it was fun. And so I don't know. We'll see where it goes. I told Alexander, my son, we'd go swimming this weekend, so we'll see.
I want to double click into that. You said something that I think is relatable in that, you were like, how do you measure success? Like, what are your expectations of yourself? Like, how did you kind of bring yourself down like, to a place of like being grounded in the present moment there, and not like looking back to your collegiate days or the days when you were younger and you were crushing it and swimming, to being like, all right, like this is what success looks like for me now.
Because if I keep comparing myself to what I was, I'll never be grateful with what I am, right? And what I have. And that's a choice because I'll never be not never say never. I doubt I'll ever be as fast as I was in my collegiate days or as strong, right? It's just what happens. We get older. And so if I can find gratitude in this moment for where I am and truly be happy for that, then that's the definition of success. Because for a really long time, I chased perfectionism and people pleasing and what everybody else thought of me. And it's like I spend so much time and energy worrying about that I just lose myself in the process. And that's been a journey, and that's not something I think I would have come to if I hadn't gotten sober first. I think all of this is possible because I got sober.
And so let's go back to like the journey with that, because I know you compared yourself to my story and others, and you're like, it wasn't this super sensational, crazy, wild thing, but in most cases when people are like, getting blacked out drunk and doing drugs, like something happens, right? Where they're like, all right, like I got to stop doing this. Like, what was the trajectory like for you? Like, did your life get like in any shape like bad at all? Like, what was the process like of you getting sober?
Yeah, I mean, I would black out every time I drank, right? And so for anybody that doesn't know what that means, it means I would just forget everything from the night before, right? And so that started to get kind of scary. I'd wake up with bruises, um, scratches, not remembering. And I had two choices every morning when I woke up. I could either do something about it or just bury the shame in more alcohol and drugs, which is what I did for a really long time. Um, I found myself in very dysfunctional relationships, like partners, boyfriends, because I was like, well, if somebody loves me, then I'm okay. Right. And so it was still that external thing, even if I wasn't happy, even if it felt, um, toxic or disruptive. And I just kept doing that. And then I found myself in a relationship and I was able to hide a lot, right? Like I was able to hide my drinking and my drug use. And I had these tools. I'd take a shot before I leave the bar. And I knew how long it would take me to get to that last liquor store before it closed. So I could get enough to go home and then just fully like black out and drink, right? If I had the wherewithal, if I was driving and to kind of, it's exhausting. Like we talked about this, being an active addiction is exhausting. Um, and this person said to me like, hey, you know what? This is getting really bad. And if you don't get help, I'm going to tell your family how bad it was. And there was a shame in that. Right. And so there was this moment of like, well, I want to keep hiding it. And so I went to 12 steps. I wasn't ready. And so I would do this dance of like, okay, well, I'm going to do this for you because I want to still people please. I want to still look like that good, the quote, good girl that's doing everything right, that nobody gets mad at. And so I'm going to go into 12 steps and I'm going to, you know, show up and say the things and highlight this book um and see I'm doing it. I'm doing good. And then I would go back out, right? And it was this dance and every time I would go back out and drink, it was so much worse than, even though it'd been 3 months since I had my last drink, it was terrible. I mean, I was in bed for an entire weekend in this space, I call it purgatory, right? Like in between. I mean, it was terrible. I couldn't. And, um, and so I checked in. I checked into an outpatient rehab because I was like, inpatient is for people with real problems. I don't have real problems. I just want to get this guy off my back, right? And I just don't want him, even though my family knew I was drinking pretty excessively. And so, um, yeah, I checked into it in outpatient because I was like, I can still keep some semblance of a normal life. I can still go to work. I can go here after work. And, it worked out. Um, and what happened was, for the first time, I realized it was so much more than the alcohol. The alcohol was just a tool. The alcohol and the drugs were the only tool in my toolbox. That there were so many other things going on. There was depression. There was lack. There was not feeling good enough. There was feeling like I was too much. The ego was running. Like all of this stuff that I was drinking to stuff down. And so I started outpatient, and I loved this. We had feelings management, and I was like, wait, do normal people just get this? Like they just understand this stuff? And I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm in a class, but it was really interesting to me. And so, I kept coming back. I was taking Antabuse. So when I wasn't in treatment, alcohol wasn't, I couldn't, for anybody that doesn't know, Antabuse will, make you really sick. It doesn't cause you to feel the effects of the alcohol. And so I took that, and it worked. And I started to feel better, you know, better than I ever had before.
And so looking back now, like what are some of the biggest lessons you've had to learn in recovery that maybe somebody who's listening to this or watching this, let's just say they're like either thinking about getting sober or into recovery, or they're like a month in, a weekend, like what are some things you'd like to share?
Um, I actually wrote some down because you gave me a heads up, and I was like, what are some real, like, what are they? Right. And so one of them is like, sobriety doesn't make my life perfect, but it makes it real. Like when I got sober and I stopped drinking, I was like, okay, well now my life's going to be perfect. And it's been a roller coaster. At 5 years, I was diagnosed with severe depression. At 10 years, my child was born. At 15 years, I went through a divorce and lost my dad. Like, it's not, when I stop drinking, it doesn't mean that everything is going to go great. It just means that I'm able to handle life on life's terms. And that's been a really beautiful thing. Um, I also realized, ask for help before you think you need it. Like I tried for 3 years to kind of to get it. Um, And it took a minute, and that's also okay. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just try. Um, and community. I think community is one of the things that saved me the most. For me, 12 steps is really powerful. But now, we talk about these online communities with women, the Sober Curious movement, like just a community of other people that helps you feel less alone is so powerful when you're going through something that's really challenging and hard.
Well, and I think the point you just brought up, it nails it. I think it's tough, and you see this with like the weight loss um, community as well, where you think because you're making a decision that is better for your well-being, that life's just going to be magically beautiful from there, right? Which I guess logically that makes sense. You would hope it makes sense, right? But like psychologically, it doesn't, right? Because now you have to like unpack everything that goes into that. But you're right, like you peel the onion back enough that you get to like the root of it, and you can see things about yourself that you never saw. And yeah, it's scary, it's hard, but the amount of strength and self-awareness and gratitude that comes with all of that is life changing. And then those tools are things that, in my opinion, will be can be used for the rest of your life. Like quitting a substance, getting into recovery, like changing your life is the foundation for everything else you'll do, because you've proven to yourself that you can make one of the toughest decisions there is, and you can stick to it. And so everything else isn't going to be necessarily easy, but everything else is going to be a little bit easier because you've already essentially told yourself that you can do hard things, that you can embrace discomfort, that you can keep going even when things are tough.
And that's one of the lessons too. It's like for me, the first year of recovery was really hard because it was like I had to go through all the things for the first time, right? But then I look back and I was like, I've done a lot of firsts. and I've gotten through them okay, you know? But something you said, I love this idea, we talk about peeling back the onion, right? We peel back the onion, and in the beginning of recovery, I was peeling back the onion, and I wanted a tangerine in the middle. I wanted a sweet tangerine, and I'm still an onion, right? Like, we're still an onion, and so part of that is just the acceptance of where I am in any moment, and all of it, it's okay, because I've gotten through 100% of my worst days, which is a pretty good, odd that I'll get through the rest of my worst days. And after 18 years, I've learned I can do it without drugs and alcohol, without numbing, without escaping, that I'm enough to get through it. And that's the greatest gift.
Yeah. When I think that people equate, um, like things being shiny with good, and I say that because, like you said, it's like, you know, you're essentially just sugar. If you were expecting the tangerine inside the onion, you're just sugarcoating it, right? Which is kind of like what gets people into trouble in the first place. And I think that, it's not saying that you can't, turn that onion into a tangerine, right? But it's more like it's gonna take some time to get there. It's not just gonna be like, all right, boom, you're gonna start peeling and the sweetness is gonna come out. You're gonna peel and it's gonna be bitter and there's gonna be tears and you're gonna be like, oh, this stinks, like you're gonna throw it. And then eventually you're like, wow, like I'm starting to realize some things. And I think also the ability to zoom out, I think is incredibly important for people because when when your brain is so wired to just think about like the next thing, the next high, the next drink or whatever, like the thought of, where your life could be if you just, you know, stop doing the thing in like 10 years is like very overwhelming, right? And I think if people can zoom out and be like, all right, like if I just dedicate 90 days of just really getting my life together, like and committing to that or 6 months, like the odds are you're going to live at least another, I mean, depending on where you're at in your life, at least another 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. And that 6 months or 90 days is so small compared to like the rest of your life.
Yeah. And something you brought up too, like, it's you can't think your way through it, right? Like, you can't intellectualize your way through recovery. You have to feel your way through it. And for so long, for 15 years, I avoided feelings. Like, I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to feel grief. I don't want like, and so I would avoid them, right? And so that's in recovery, we get to feel those things and walk through them, right? But that's really hard too. It's really hard to not numb and not anesthetize after so long when you've been avoiding feelings. Right?
Was part of your fear, um, with not speaking out? I mean, I know when Michael got into trouble, and I say this because it was all public. There was a lot of like hate towards him. Did you would it was watching that like sway your decision about not speaking out because of fear of like what people would say about you publicly or anything?
No, I mean, the only place Michael came into play in that was that he was so open about his mental health struggles, and I was like, okay, if he's so brave to do that, um, then I can be too. But no, it didn't. I mean, I was so new in recovery then. Um, it didn't. I was brand new. I mean, I was only a couple years in at that point. Um, yeah, but his openness about his mental health struggles were really, really informative in my decision. I mean, that was in the back of my mind when I was like, wow, that's to see everything he's done and speaking so openly about this internal struggle. I was like, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it was super powerful, and it was awesome that he did that. I think it's amazing. I also like put myself in your shoes, and like whenever like he would make like the slightest mistake, people would just crush him in the media, right? And I was like, man, like I don't know, like I'm like if I like say that I made a mistake, like what are they going to say about me, And like if that was kind of went through my mind with that question.
Yeah, no, it wasn't about that. It never came to me. Whenever that would happen, it would be to him, right? It's like, I mean, same thing with Alexander. It's like mama bear full effect. And so if anybody would say anything mean, I felt very more protective of him than worried about what, people would think about me if I had said something.
So I want to talk about like the tough, I guess essentially like the toughest year of your life, right? Where you're at 15 years sober back in 2022, divorce, raising your son, the father unexpectedly dies. starting a business, like trying to pave your own way, right? And but yet you also have admitted that you had like cravings during that time. Like walk me through that dance and how you remained strong during a time where if at any point you were going to go back, it would have been at that point, right? Like how did you handle all that?
I still get really emotional thinking about that. My son and I, at the beginning of that year, just moved into an apartment. I stayed at home with him, and so I launched a business. So I could, up until that point, he was 5. No, he was 4 when we moved. Was in preschool, and so it was really important for me to be with him. So I was trying to start a business where I could still pick him up from school, right? Try to navigate this in a really hard time. So we had moved. I launched a business, finalized a divorce, and then in May of that year was the first time I started speaking out about it. October of 2022, my dad unexpectedly died. He didn't wake up, and so my dad was my person, and he'd been really present that whole year of that challenge, and he was so proud and of me sharing my story. And so when my dad didn't wake up, I was sitting in my apartment and just kind of puttering around, and I was like, you know what? F this. I can't take any more this year. This is like, I've been through a lot, ups and downs of sobriety and like, losing friendships or, um, I don't know, moving, like those things are off. But all of this at one time was just so much to hold. And the first pop, I was like, I'm gonna drink. I don't care. I don't care. I mean, nobody could blame me. Like, look at this year, right? And then the next thought was, you need to go to a meeting. Which is not me, right? That's how I know that there's a higher power, the universe, God, whatever it is. There's something greater than me that said this isn't a good idea. And so I joke, but it was true. And I was like, ice cream, like I wanted something. I did want something outside of myself. And so I bought a pack of cigarettes. I smoked when I was drinking, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. And I joke, my mom's like, do you have to do that? And I was like, well, it's these cigarettes, or I'm gonna go to a dive bar, find a cocaine dealer, and like you're probably not gonna see me for a while, right? Like I may lose my child, I may lose my life. Like this is the alternative here. And I think for her, she's like, that's pretty different. Those are so different, And I was like, well, that's it's all or nothing with an addict, especially me, or, my experience. And so, um, but it was shocking to me how quick and strong that craving came on. Because for me, the physical craving was lifted pretty quickly, up until like at 6 months, I had a really big craving. And then every once in a while when I'd see people, like wine was still a big trigger, but I didn't really have that physical pull to it. And in that moment, the thought of getting in the car and going to a liquor store was so powerful. That I was surprised by that. And it's just a reminder that we, as I said, we have a daily reprieve. It's one day at a time that I get to not drink alcohol or use drugs. It was, yeah, it was a moment.
What would you tell yourself to keep you going? Like when these thoughts would come up?
Like in 2022, what did I tell myself? Yeah.
I'm curious because I know you've mentioned that you can't like talk your way through recovery. But I think what cripples people is these ruminating thoughts and just being like, all right, like it's just one drink, or you're a failure, you're not going to make it anyway, or the world's against me. Like how did you, like when life was really unfair for you at that time, how did you keep yourself optimistic that things were going to be okay?
I leaned on community. I leaned on my friends. I leaned on, and I also, there's this tool, it's called play the tape through, right? Like I sat down, I was like, if I go and have one drink, it's not going to be one drink. Like I know this about myself, right? I know myself well enough to know that it's not going to bring my dad back. It's not going to change the way I feel. It's probably going to make me feel a lot worse. I'm going to wake up tomorrow feeling a lot of regret and shame. I'm going to have to start my day count over. Um, there's nothing that this is going to fix, right? And I had to sit in that discomfort. And that's what I talk about. Like, you can't think your way through it. I had to feel it. I had to sit there and feel the grief and the pain and the sadness. And I didn't like it at all, right? But those are where the tools come in, like whether that's a meeting or reaching out to a friend. I joked and I called them my board of directors. one of them is in recovery, two of them are not, um, three of them are not, sorry. But I could lean on them for anything. Like, they don't drink. They're those people that just don't drink, you know, like the other ones. And I relied on them. And so I leaned in and I was like, hey, I'm struggling. And I had to, I chose to ask for help. And we talked about this early on, and that's where, things like athletics, right, are getting us to this point. Like, I was so self-reliant for so long. I just did whatever it took to win and succeed. And in those moments, it's kind of going against everything I ever knew of. Pushing harder is not going to make it change. I can't just think my way out of this. I have to really lean into the tools of moving my body. What to say, move a muscle, change a thought, go for a walk, meditate, pray, drink some water, eat some food. I mean, halt. I learned this early on: hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. Like, anytime I have a craving or anytime something comes up, I have to check in with those things. Am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Oh, okay, what can I do to fix those things, and then see how I feel, after I take a nap or eat some food or call a friend or process my anger. Um, and those are all, yeah, tools and things that I've accumulated over the years from being sober, right? Or talking to people like you, talking to other people in recovery, saying like, hey, what worked when you were struggling with this?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to dive more into the performative aspect of this, because you see athletes all the time when they're mentally drained. It's like they rely on their God given ability and their athletic talent to like persevere during that event. But recovery and like healing, like, you can't perform your way out of it. And I think also people who are type A, who are so used to athletics, they're like, how do I keep score? Like, how do I know if I'm doing okay? Like, what has that been like for you? Like, how have you been able to measure like progress and success in your recovery journey, given like you said, you were so reliant on um like the external stuff and performative metrics and the athleticism? Like, what's that been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, so the world could literally be falling down around me, but if there's a day I don't have a drink, which I've accumulated over 18 years of those, it's a successful day. And that sounds trite, but I mean that, because for so long that was the only thing I did day in and day out. And so that's first and foremost, right? Any day that I don't have a drink, it's okay. Um, I've had to learn to dismantle my perfectionist tendencies over time, right? My partner, Greg, who like, he jokes, and it's really good to have this kind of funny humor, because I'll do like, we're setting up for the podcast and he's the tech guy to talk to you right now. I am like, and I'm just kind of like, I'll figure it out. I got this. And he's like, you want some help? I'm like, yeah, yes, I do. I need some help. And he calls it wearing my cape, right? And he's like, okay, you can wear your Wonder Woman cape and it's okay. But if you ever want to take it off, I can hold it for you and I can help you and I can hang it up and help you. I'm like, okay. And so it kind of helps to have a little bit of levity in it. And it helps me see like, oh yeah, I don't have to do it all the time. I also have a team of people, and that sounds funny, but I have a therapist and I have a process group, and I've worked with a coach, like, to help me see where I'm not failing, but my gaps, right? Because day in and day out, I can co-sign my own BS, or I can tell myself that, it's like, but if someone's like, okay, well, what about this part here? Or this seems, um, because for a long time I wanted help, right? And I have help. And then when it comes, it feels really unnerving in my system, right? My nervous system is like, oh, wait a second. My brain's like, I really want this help. But my system's like, this feels really weird, or this feels uncomfortable. And so having somebody that I can talk through with that, or knowing the tools and the practices to say like, I'm okay. I'm okay right now. I'm okay with receiving help. I'm okay with giving help. I'm okay with making a mistake. I'm okay with not getting my to-do list done. However, I think in today's world, we want this, and myself included for a long time, I just want to be done with it. I want it to be quick. I want that instant gratification. It's done, it's good. And it's like, it's a process, and that's okay. And I didn't finish my whole list today, and that's okay. You know?
What do you think is like a few like hard realities that hit you in recovery, that you think people like really need to learn if they're gonna like stay on this path long term?
Yeah, life isn't perfect. Life is not unicorns and butterflies. Like, it is still life. And so again, like when I thought, um, when I got sober, that it was going to be perfect. Like, I should be perfect now. Right. And also, like honesty, right? Like for a really long time, I didn't want to be honest with myself or others, and getting really freaking honest, right? Like saying like, yeah, I did those things when I was drinking and I regret them and I'm sorry, right? So I think honesty was a really hard thing for me when I got sober, because I just wanted to ignore all those things. I wanted to like turn my head and be like, this is not. Um, and I think boundaries were really hard in the beginning of recovery, and they can still feel really hard now because of that people pleasing, right? But in early recovery, I remember people saying, just don't go to the birthday party. And I remember thinking, I have to go to the birthday party at the bar. Like I have to go. And it's like, what do you want? They say, can I curse on here? Okay. I would really, they say, do you want to, it's not even a bad word, but it's like, do you want to save your ass or save your face? Right. And so oftentimes I chose to save my ass by not drinking versus saving my face and worried about what other people would think.
FOMO is a real thing, right? And I think that, I used to have this really cutthroat, like David Goggins approach with recovery and like the way I gave advice. And there's still a big part of that in me because I'm like, all right, like I don't like sugarcoating things. I'm pretty direct. But I've also learned to have a lot of compassion for people, right? The older I've gotten, the more wise I've gotten. I'm like, like you gotta like have some compassion for people and empathy, right? Um, and that's something I've worked on, for a while. And I say that because I think one of the hardest things for people, especially like if your issue is alcohol and like you are somebody who blacks out and goes out at the party scene, is that your entire social life is wrapped up in that. And there's a lot of like celebratory things that come with that. And obviously like the same thing could be said if you're doing like heroin and coke, but with alcohol, it's like 21st birthday, you're going out to drink, at wedding, all these things. It's a celebratory nature of it. And it's like the only thing where if you don't want to drink, like you have to almost like justify like why you're not doing it. You know what I mean? And I think it's a hard thing for people, but it's like I wish you could flip the switch and be like, well, you just have to like do it. You have to not like give in to FOMO. You have to not like be worried about that. But then I also understand the challenge and the mind games and like you were saying, like going back and forth in your mind with what you do. Like, what's your advice to people who are like in their 20s and 30s specifically, where a majority of their social life is wrapped up in their ability to go out and party, and yet they're kind of sticking out as that person that shouldn't be doing that anymore?
Yeah, I can't imagine doing it at 20, like being in college. You hear people getting sober in college. I'm like, oh my gosh, how? But we all have our moment, right? Like we all have the moment when we're like, I can't do this anymore. Um, I think this comes back to community, right? Like having a community of people. Like my first New Year's Eve, I had 3 friends over that were brand new in the program, and we made sushi in my studio apartment in Washington, D.C. And then we like went out for a walk. Yeah. And it was like, okay, so I didn't feel so alone if I could surround myself with other people who were doing the same thing. And at the time, I knew nobody. Like, let me be clear. I was the one in the friend group who was drinking the most, who was I was the poster child for drinking. And so when I got sober, I'd found a group of other people. And there was one woman I hung out with the entire first year of my sobriety. We did everything. She came to Thanksgiving with me. I mean, she was like a sober buddy, and we did everything. I went on vacation with her family. I mean, and that was really helpful because I didn't feel alone or less than. Um, yeah. And I'm interested. Hold on. I want to go back to this curiosity thing about the David Goggins approach to recovery. What do you mean by that? You would like hard hitting, like, yeah. Like, what would you do?
When I got into recovery, I was in jail, and I had my cellmate helped me, and he gave me some like really tough love, and got me to really look at myself in the mirror and to stop. It was the PG version. Was he told me to stop being a victim, right? And he told me to stop like making excuses, to stop blaming everybody else for my problems, and which I needed to hear because I was, and it got me nowhere, right? And I responded. It was at the right time where I was like, you know what? Clearly, I don't have all the answers. My life is in shambles. I'm in jail. Like all the things. Like clearly, I'm not like the brightest person right now. But there was also this authenticity that came through where I felt like he genuinely wanted to help me and he cared about me. So I listened to him and I gave exercise a try, and the rest is history. But I remember, because I think people get trapped in this. They think that because this one way helped them, and it's the way for everyone. And that's what I'm getting at in that, where as a trainer, and you'll relate to this as somebody who's a single mom, like, I would have people come to me and um, they're like, "I don't have time. Like, I'm a single mom. I have 3 kids. I gotta go." I'm like, "Make time, make time, make time." And the older I've gotten and the more you know, life experience I've had, I'm like, "Oh, like, I was really uncompassionate, back then because I didn't see the full picture. I was just focused on what I thought worked for me, right?" And with recovery, I think, I've never, like, been mean about it to people, but I've just been very direct, like, "Stop making excuses, suck it up, like, life's not fair, keep going." And, you know, I'm somebody who likes to work on myself, and I'm like, "All right, like, how could I maybe fine tune this approach?" And so I've also learned to have a lot of compassion for people's situation and trying to have the same level of, I mean, I say Gaga just because that's just somebody who anybody kinda knows, and how he is, right? Which I love, but it's also not for everyone, and it's also about how can you soften it up a little bit so that you're not being, you're not sugarcoating things, you're not giving people that tangerine out of an onion, like you said. You're also, like, having some level of understanding and acceptance that they feel validated, that you understand where they're at. And that's what I mean by that. It's like, the whole, um, thing about giving up your social life in your 20s. Like, I got into recovery when I was 21. So, I was super young. So, I have a lot of understanding on what that feels like. I also know that if I didn't change my life at that point, I would have been dead. And I think there's a lot of people like that, that it's like they're at this crossroads where they need to know, like, this is life or death. Like, if you're somebody who's an opiate addict, it's life or death now. It is. It's just no doubt about it. If you're a prescription pill addict, it's life or death. Like, you get the wrong pill from someone that's got fentanyl in it, it's it. You're done. It's not a matter of like, "Oh, I'll just like I'll grow out of it." It's just it's so different. I guess my roundabout answer is, I've worked really hard to not make my approach the only approach, while also maintaining my values and my integrity of like, okay, I'm a direct person. I tell it like it is. I believe in, taking accountability. I don't believe in sugarcoating things. I also am someone that believes in having compassion for people and that you have to understand how challenging this journey is.
Agreed. And I think it comes to your point, like compassion and curiosity, right? Because what works for me might not work for you. And that's okay. The only thing is the desire to not drink or not use like one day at a time. And how can we be better today than we were yesterday? And not in the like performative way, right? But saying, um, but what you said too hit the nail on the head because I think everyone I know, myself included, that comes in as it's always like, I'm drinking because of that person. Or if you knew what my life was like, you would drink too. Or I had this, right? And that was a really transformative moment. And it sounds like it was for you too when I got out of that mindset and said, like, take responsibility for what I did, take responsibility for the people I hurt, take responsibility for the untruths that I told, take responsibility for the impact that I have on other people's lives that maybe I'm not aware of. It's also really empowering, right? Because I can change that. I can't change the way someone feels about me, but I can change the way I act and how I show up in the world.
Yeah. And I think it's this interesting journey with that, right? Where you feel powerless. So you blame other people for, why you're so powerless, which makes you so powerless. And then like once you like get past that, over that hump, and you're like, oh, like, I do have power in this. Like, your life changes, right? And that's what it was. Yeah, I remember I was like blaming kids for bullying me and blaming my parents' divorce, and I was blaming, my unathletic ability, all these things. And my cellmate was like, well, like, what's your role here? Like, you're blaming everybody else but yourself. And, I've just learned that, like, as unfortunate as life can be sometimes, and trust me, there's people who had it way worse than I did. There's people who had it better than I did. I've learned that blaming other people does absolutely nothing for your well-being, but bad, because it keeps you trapped in that same area that you're upset about. Like, you're stuck and you're upset about it and you feel powerless and out of control, right? And the only way to regain control and to get your power back is to find some level of accountability, like extreme ownership, right? As Jocko Willing said, it's like you have to, like, as hard as it is and as like sucky as it feels in that moment, like you have to be like, all right, like what can I control right now? Like what can I do like to get better? And I think when you do that, you gain some level of confidence because you're like, all right, now I see that I'm not as crazy as I think I am, not as powerless, not as hopeless. And I am smart. I can figure this out. And then you just build momentum off of that.
Yeah, which is the antithesis of the opposite, right, of what we were doing. Because whether it's food or drugs or sex or gambling, whatever it is, like we're looking outside of ourselves to solve something that's going on inside of us, right? The same thing with that victim mentality. Like, I'm going to blame somebody else for the way I feel. And that second we say, okay, I'm going to take that back and I'm going to start to look at, right, my side of it, or, okay, what can I do in this moment to process how I feel, not change it, right? Because for so long in active addiction, I was looking for anything outside of myself to change the way I felt because I just wanted to feel better, be better, do better instead of just feeling, this idea of like emotions and feelings last for 90 seconds. It's the stories we tell ourselves about them that keep us trapped in them, right? So whether that's a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade of I feel this way, so I'm going to ruminate on this, right? And that comes back to that victim story, like, oh, well, this person did this, so this is why I feel the way I do, and just staying stuck in it, right? We can choose to say, what's my part in this? Okay, I'm just going to let this go. I don't have to forgive them, but I'm going to forget. Or I don't have to forget about it, but I'm going to choose to forgive them. And that's okay because it's for me, not for them.
And I think the one thing that, can keep people stuck too is like for me, like I got validation from certain people in my life, but there was a lot of unvalidation. Like there wasn't a lot of validation in my when I was younger, right? Because I don't want to say that I didn't feel validated at all. It's not true. What I am saying is, I felt validated very little compared to what I thought I should be feeling when I was younger. And so when you tell the sob story and people are like, "Oh my gosh, like you had it so bad," like it feels so good, right? And that's a trap because now it's an addictive, euphoric feeling of you reinforcing in your mind that everyone's choices are the reason that your life is so bad, right? And it's a really crappy way to live. And I think that once you get past that, you are able to understand like, wow, like I do have some control here, versus like being addicted to everybody feeling sorry for you.
Yes, that's such a good point. It's powerful. Yeah.
One of the other shifts that can happen, and we were talking about this before we recorded, that can be really beneficial for people is like, you know, finding the good in addiction, in that, um, like a lot of the qualities that require you to maintain being an addict are discipline, like can do attitude, win at all costs, like manipulate other people to get what you want, like all these things. If you flip it on its head, these qualities can actually be kind of good. Like, I say manipulation, like on the good side, it's like being able to sell yourself, right? Is a really good quality to have. Staying disciplined and like doing things consistently is a good quality. Like winning at all costs, like, is a great quality. Like, and so being able to be like, all right, like if I was able to put so much energy and work into this thing with these qualities, what can I do with that? And I know you've done that with like what you're doing now in in your work with helping people in recovery and sharing your story, and you've kind of like almost flip that on its head, and you're like, all right, I'm going to take all this energy that was pent up in addiction stuff, shame, trauma, and I'm going to like kind of unleash it in a way that's helping other people.
Yeah. I mean, so something that came to me when you were saying that is like selfish, right? Like when we're in active addiction, like I'm so selfish because I'm only thinking about me, right? Like what's this going to do for me? What can I get out of this? How much more is left for me? um, and now how I can use that is like selfish is self-respect, right? So, okay, how can I validate my time or how can I value my time in order to fill up my cup so that I feel okay so I can support others? And it's kind of that little shift um, in a mindset, right? And so I had this conversation yesterday, and it was so powerful for me, and so I'd love to share it here. But he was talking, he's like, "Well, what is discipline? What does that word feel like for you?" And I was like, "I don't like the word discipline because discipline for me reminds me of getting up at 3:45 in the morning to go, drive to the pool and to swim, and then discipline, showing up, doing it for other people." And he's like, "But what if you change discipline with to rituals? These are the rituals that you." I'm like, "Oh." I like that. So sometimes it's also just that little mindset shift. And I was like, oh, these are the rituals that fill my cup. Okay, I can do that. Like I can get behind that. And so I think it's also realizing what that shift is to say, because we were talking about this, right? Like in swimming, it was like do whatever I can, win at all costs, and those did translate into addiction. Do whatever I can. I will walk a mile in the snow to the liquor store to get booze because I might be snowed in for a couple days and that'll be really bad news. Yet I won't go to the gym if it's snowing or work out because it's too cold, right? So how can I use that mindset shift? Like if I was willing to do it then, how can I use it now to do things that are good for me versus things that are a little bit more destructive? Um, but I think that first step is being excuse me, is being aware of it, right? Like I'm aware that these things were survival mechanisms then, and these things can be used to thrive now. It's just how can I translate that into the well-being versus that kind of destructive mentality.
I think self-awareness, what you're talking about is like it's incredibly important to have. I think it's challenging to get, especially like early recovery when your brain is just still so effed up and it's like still wired for instant gratification. It's wired for danger. It's wired for chaos, all the things. How have you began to develop like self-awareness? What was that first step for you?
Yeah, and I think that also comes down to like you were saying, compassion, right? Like because self-awareness isn't like I'm a terrible human, I'm so bad, I'm this. Like it's not. It's having that self-compassion for self, like saying, okay, there was a time in my life when I was really sick and struggling. Um, but self-awareness comes down to that brutal honesty, like not self-flagellation, not self-destructive, right? But that awareness that, okay, I made a mistake. It's okay. How can I move forward from this? And part of it is, I remember doing this work with someone in the program, and I was like, I did all these terrible things, and I'm a terrible person. She's like, that you were at a different point in your life, and now than you are now. Just don't do it again. And I was like, wait, what? Like that's enough? She's like, yeah, you're acknowledging that you made a mistake, and you might not be able to change it. And that's okay. Just don't do it again. And that's enough. But I was like holding on to these things that I did from, 8 years old. And she's like, that's not self awareness. That's just self harm. And so I think the first step in self awareness is just being like that brutally honest with compassion. You know,
How did you like heal from the bullying? Did that like linger on like throughout your adulthood at all?
yeah, yeah, yes, because there was this undercurrent of just never being enough. And when you're a high achiever and an addict, it's a really hard thing to chase, right? Like I'm never enough. I'm never good enough in my sport. I'm never good enough in my job. I'm never good enough as a daughter. I'm never good enough as a parent or a partner. Um, and that's where I think that self-acceptance has to come in. Like I'm doing the best I can today and believing it, right? Like I can't outthink it. I have to believe it. It's okay. And what are the things I've done today that are good enough? And I think, and I'd love your perspective on this. Like it sounds so simple, but gratitude is one of the greatest tools because I can look at all the things I don't have or all the things I've done wrong or all the, missed opportunities. But if I can sit today, and some days it really is as simple. We were talking before about like having coffee beans in my grinder this morning. I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful that I had warm water for a shower and not just thinking it, but truly feeling it and not worrying about what it would be like to not have it, but be grateful that I do. Right. And it's such a powerful tool.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's being able to catch yourself in those moments. Like the example you were using is, we bought a really nice coffee maker because we were spending an absurd amount of money on coffee going out and we love good coffee. We love good coffee shops and we still go there. But my point is, we're like, all right, if we buy this, we're going to commit to the best of our ability. Like I'm out and I work at coffee shops a lot, so it's a little bit more tougher for me, but to the best of our ability, we're not going to spend as much money on coffee. And so we live pretty close to a Starbucks, and I don't walk there nearly as much as I used to because we have this coffee maker. And Erica was like, we're out of beans, and I was like, oh, the walk of shame. And I was like, I can't believe I have to like go out, and walk in this 20 and 25, whatever it is, like 25 degrees outside and grab coffee. And I remember walking back and thinking to myself, Like, there's people in other parts of the world that have to walk, like, miles to get clean water, right? They have to walk, like, forever to, get clean food, and people my point was, if this is the worst thing that happens to me today, you know, I'm in a really good spot while also understanding human nature and being like, we're all, like, guilty of this at times, right? It's all, like, we all do things or think things that's like, "It shouldn't happen to me," or "I should have it better," or "I can't believe I'm doing this," and I think what I think the difference in my experience is, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, is that I think it's okay, obviously, to have these thoughts because 'cause we're human and we're flawed. The difference, I think, in what makes people I use the term successful just to make it simple. Successful and not successful when dealing with this is the people who are successful acknowledge it, and they just accept it's part of the human experience, they move on, and they're like, "Alright, like, how can I find the silver lining in this?" When people are unsuccessful, they harp on it. It's like, do I get irritated at times if somebody gets my order wrong? Like, if I go pick up my coffee and it's not ready on time or something like that. Of course, like, I'm like, "Oh, I wish I would have ordered this sooner," or whatever, but that doesn't ruin my day. I'm not, like, on social media, like, complaining about it. I'm just like, "Oh, I wish it was ready sooner." And that's the difference. It's like if you're somebody that just lets things like this just ruin your day, like, that's where it becomes a problem because, it's just human nature to get irritated at times throughout the course of the day. It's just gonna happen. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, so a couple things. One, I love this, and that was a beautiful example of self-awareness, right? Like you're aware of like we planned to always have coffee beans. We didn't. It's okay. I made a mistake. I'm going to go get coffee, and it's okay, right? Um, it's okay. It's all okay, right? If that's the worst thing that happens to me, it's a pretty good day. But what came up when you were saying is like intention too. Like, what is the intention behind it? Like when you're talking about this coffee person, like messing up an order or whatever, it's like, are you mad at them or are you mad at yourself, right? And it sounds like in that example, you're like, oh, I should have ordered it earlier, darn it. But instead of taking responsibility, we project it onto the other person. Like, oh, you're not doing it fast enough because now I'm late. And it's like, that's my fault. That's not your fault. Um, and I also think like to tie it together, like what you were about the intention of, um, I want, I'm working in a coffee shop and I want coffee. It's like, what's your intention isn't like, well, screw it. I don't want to make it at home. It's like, no, this is what I'm doing in this moment because I'm working here and it's okay. Right. And so, um, I'm not sure if that tied it all together, but it's working in my head. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it comes back to intention, and I think that is you hit it right on the head. It's like, you know, when I'm it's normally like, when the coffee's not ready, it's the time that I should have ordered it sooner, that I'm in a rush, that I'm late, already to, like, what I need to do, and it's like I'm rushed getting out the door, but I have awareness. My point was, I have awareness around it, and I know that, like, I understand that it's a me problem. It's not like the barista's problem.
yeah. And sometimes things just happen. Like there's construction and you're going to be late. And that's, it's like, if that's the worst thing that happens to me, it's okay.
Well, it goes back to the compassion conversation, right? Because I think that that's something I've had to work on it, and I've worked on it because of my relationship with myself, and like it's okay, like if you're it's okay to be a few minutes late, like every now and again, like as long as it's not intentional, like it's not like okay, like there's a difference between like hitting unexpected traffic or something happening at home before you leave and it sets you back versus like, oh, they won't care, I'll just show up late. Like that's a big difference, right? And, because that goes back to intention, and, um, but I think the problem is we live in this world where everyone wants to be perfect, everybody wants to, like, post the highlight reels on social media, where they think nothing you've kind of the theme of our conversation, they think that nothing bad should happen throughout the course of the day, um, and it's all relative, right? But I do think that the more you can just own your flaws and work on them, the better your life will be instead of just like, again, the tangerine example, sugarcoating things. No, I never make mistakes. Or because it's like those people I don't trust. Cause then it's like, okay, that person clearly has zero self awareness and they're like clearly like sociopathic if they don't understand that they're flawed because we're all flawed.
And that's, I think, one of the greatest lessons I've learned in parenthood is to teach my child that it's okay to make mistakes. I am not the perfect parent. This is the first time I have ever done this in my life, and I'm going to make mistakes, and he, and I'll say like, you know what? I'm sorry. You were right. I didn't put this in your folder last night. That was my fault. I'm so sorry. I'll let your teacher know. And if it is him, I'm like, okay, no, that was you, but taking responsibility and saying, oh my gosh, I totally made a mistake. I forgot to put that in your folder. Or there are times when I get frustrated and I've like snapped and I'm like, you've got to get, and he's like, I don't like it when you talk to me. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't raise my voice. I'm sorry that I did that. Can we have a discussion about how you need, and my partner's like, it's really hard to parent that way. And I'm like, but if I can teach him now to own his mistakes, that nobody is perfect, it is okay to say, I'm sorry. We just clean up our mess. Like all of those things, that is about being a human, right? And you talk about this idea, like everything that comes around goes around, right? It is natural law. Like there will be days or the pendulum, right? Like when I first got sober, that pendulum swing was so big. It was like the really high highs and really low lows. There was no middle. But now it kind of settles in the middle and the highs aren't as high. And that's okay because the lows aren't as low. Right. And it's like, and I know that when I'm having a good day, it's going to pass. Tomorrow could be tough. And when I'm having a tough day, it could pass and tomorrow could be great. Like it's okay to be exactly where I am. Right. It's a,
So how did your relationship with your dad like shape the way you're parenting Alexander?
wow. My dad's dad died when he was 8. And so my dad didn't have, a model, I think, to be a dad. And so I remember that. And my dad was a police officer. And so it's very scary. He was never mean or, any of them. I'm not alluding to that, but he was like, he was a big, tough teddy bear. My dad was fiercely loving and protective, and emotional and real. And I think that's every time I left, my dad would cry and he's like, I love you so much, and even as protective and and like a rule follower, as he wanted us to be, he was always very, very giving and kind with his love and affection. And I think that's informed a lot of how I parent Alexander. Um, and it's helped me be a little bit more patient because my dad didn't have the best patience. He was like, he was sometimes very impatient. And so when I get, you know, frustrated, I try to remember that, like how I felt and yeah, try to offer as much patience as I can.
Well, that protective nature certainly comes out, right? Like with the way you're quick to defend people and him, um, and it's really cool that you've been able to like find the silver lining in that moment, back in 2022, and like use these lessons to help you, um, kind of just grow and evolve as a parent.
Yeah, but the last conversation I had with my dad, um, he was temper, he was like doing something in the kitchen and Alexander was little and he was stepping under his feet. He was 4. He was 5 by then. And my dad's like, you know what? He's like, that's dirty. He was playing in the compost bowl. And I'm like, Dad, if this is too much for you, we're going to go. And he's like, Hillary. And I was like, you know what? It's fine. And so that was the last conversation I had with my dad. And there's a lot of guilt around that. But what I said to Alexander is, I will be fiercely loyal and protective of you. You're my little guy, even if that's to my dad. And that was, the last conversation we had. I will always protect and love you. And I've always got your back. And just kind of looks at me and, he'll bring it up every once in a while. And he's like, yeah, remember when you were protecting me? And I was like, yeah, I remember.
So as we're like landing this plane of our conversation and bringing everything home, I'm curious, like in the world we live in, it's fueled with addiction, instant gratification. Like you can be addicted to almost anything now with what's going on. Like how are you protecting? How do you envision yourself? I guess protecting your son in this world without being so overbearing that he doesn't experience any kind of hardship.
I can give another example of this, I try to be a safe space for him to share anything. And because if he can do it now, then hopefully he'll do it. When I first got sober, or when I first had my son, I was really nervous that like, "Oh my gosh, what if he's an addict? Like, this is gonna be terrible. How can I prevent this from happening?" Right? And I look at all of these things and I was like, "Well, that's a sign of an addict, and he's obsessive. Oh my gosh, so I know he's gonna be one of us." And then I kinda settled into the space of, if he is, I know exactly what to do to help him because I walked through it, and so I'll be able to guide and help and do what I can. Um, and then what I realized is the only thing I can really do is to be that safe space for him to be able to tell me anything. And so one this year on Mother's Day, he had been at his dad's house and he came home and he looked at me and he's like, "I don't wanna be with you right now." And I was like, "That's," I'm angry, and my mom was there and my partner was there, and they're like, "How can you?" And I got up and I walked inside and he starts crying and he came in and he's like, "Why are you sad?" And I said, "You can tell me anything you want, and I'm not gonna yell at you or, tell you, 'This is my day. How dare you talk to me like that?' Because you're just expressing the way you feel, and I always want you to be able to come to me and say exactly how you feel, and I might not like it, but I'm never gonna be mad at you or shame you for telling me exactly what's going on in your life." And both my mom and my partner were like, "He should," and I'm like, "This is when it starts. It doesn't start when he's 15, and I hope that then he'll be able to come to me and tell me how he feels." It starts with me. I'm the parent. I need to be able to be, and this comes back to the self-awareness and self-respect, right? Like, I need to be okay in any given moment so I can hold the space for him because my job isn't to, um, protect him. I mean, my job is to protect him, but I need to teach him that everything he's feeling is okay. He is okay the way he is. I'm proud of who he is, not what he does, right? And that's something also I'm very conscious of saying, like, "I love your heart. I love the how kind you were to the little boy the other day. I love this." Like, it's because it's not about a doing and achieving, it's about being exactly who he is. Um, yeah, so I don't yeah, I don't know. I just do the best I can with trying to help him be the best little boy he can be and being okay with, whatever comes.
Does he know like about your story? Like, have you like shared a lot about like your journey with addiction?
A little bit, and he's heard me. I was in reading in his kindergarten class, and someone's like, "Alexander's mom, what do you do for work?" And he goes, "She helps women that are struggling in transition and guides them home to themselves," or something like that. He said it, and I was like, "What?" I'm like, "How do you know that?" He's like, "I've heard you." So he's always listening. And I was like, "I don't drink wine. I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink it." And he's like, "Why?" And I said, "'Cause I can't stop." And I try to explain it to him in a way that makes sense as an 8-year-old that's not overwhelming. It's like I said, "It's a disease that I have." And he's like, "Do I have it?" I'm like, "I don't know. But if you do, we'll be able to I'll be able to help. We can help you." And there's treatments and so he kind of knows, but I'm like, it's kind of like being, eating sugar and not being able to stop and then getting so sick from eating ice cream, but you still can't stop. And he's like, "Why can't you stop?" It's like, it's a disease. And so he knows a little bit, but he's never, heard my whole story.
Hillary, thank you so much for coming on and for your vulnerability and for sharing so openly. Really appreciate it. I know my audience is going to get a lot of value out of this conversation. If people want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about what you're doing, where's the best place to do that?
Yeah, my website is, hilaryphelps.com with 1 L. And then Instagram, it's Hilary Phelps with an underscore, and those are the 2 places, I'm probably most active and have a Substack, but podcast oh, yeah, and a podcast. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, there are a couple places." Yeah, thank you, Doug, this was so great. I adore you, and I love what you're putting out into the world, and I'm so grateful that you've asked me to be a part of it.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words and really like proud of you. I think what you're doing is amazing. And thanks again for taking the time and for being so vulnerable. Like I said, I think the audience is going to love this conversation.
Thank you so much.